All right, we are fired up to welcome on to Theater in College Hoops a man who has served on Valpo's staff for 21 years, one of Division One's 5 longest active tenures heading into last season, a former academic All-American and starting forward at Bethel College in McKenzie, Tennessee, and now, just about a couple months ago, I think, the director of basketball operations at Wichita State. We have Luke Gore joining us today. Luke, how's it going, man?
Great. Really honored to be on here and talking to you and just talking some hoops.
Yeah, no, we're real fortunate to have you on here. Hey, how's the off season going? We're just a couple months removed. Have you been able? I mean, it's been a whirlwind for you, hasn't it?
It has. It's been an off season. It's been exciting. It's changes and moving and getting to be on join a great leave a great place in Valpo, but get to join another amazing opportunity for me and be able to join Coach Mill's staff at Wichita State. Just it's been a hectic off season, but a great one and a rejuvenating and motivating off season too.
I believe it. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the new regime there at Wichita State has in store for us this upcoming season, you included, of course, and we'll get to all of that. But first, I need to know a little bit more context. Are you still in Valpo as it stands? I'm in Chicago, by the way, so we're just a bit of a stone's throw away.
Well, no, I'm very fortunate. I had a ton of people come to my house in Valpo on Saturday and Sunday, helped me move out, move into a truck, and then me and one of my closest friends, we drove across the country to Wichita, and we got here, and then the coaching staff and a couple managers and their buddies showed up, and we unloaded the truck in about an hour or so. One of my favorite sayings is many hands make light work. Well, many hands made light work moving in, so it was pretty awesome, pretty welcoming, and it was pretty humbling leaving and so many people being there to help and support. So just very thankful for the ending and the place I've been for so long, and very thankful for where I'm at now and the future.
I know in my 20s when I did a lot of moving, whether it was from one apartment to another in college, it was usually, hey, who has the pickup truck? I'll give you pizza and beer. Was it anything like that, or was it a bit more official and polished, this move?
No, not really. My wife kept asking me. She was like, well, we need to get pizza. We need to do this. And I'm like, when we get done, all of us will hang out, have a drink, and do that. And then she was there, and so she ended up buying pizza for everybody and all that. But not much. And then we got here, and then we got done. And I guess when you move, pizza is the thing to do. So we got done, and we all went to a pizza joint and had some pizza. So watched the playoff game and did that. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, from a family perspective, Luke, I've moved a couple times, even when I was younger, as a kid. And you have two children, I believe. I mean, from that perspective, where they've built roots, you've built roots. What was that conversation like with them, and how have they taken this transition?
My kids are troopers. My wife's amazing. But through the whole transition, it's been up and down, but they're excited. But like you said, in this profession, you don't get to build roots like I've been able to do. So the only friends they've ever had have been in Valpo. They're 8 and 11. And so they had some really good friends on their sports teams and whatnot. And so, but they're excited too. They're excited for the adventure. We're a very adventurous family. We take, when we go on vacation, sometimes we just get in the car and drive for 6, 7, 8 days, see where it takes us. And and we've done that a lot with them. I think my son, I think he's been to 36 states already or something like that.
He's 11 years old and been to 36 states?
11. I think that's what we had this little map. We have this little kid's puzzle map. And he was like, all right, let's pull off all the places you've been. And I was shocked. He just kept, it's a lot of driving through places, but we've driven a lot. We've driven to the East Coast. We've driven almost to the West Coast from the South. So driven down there. So he's knocked out a lot. It's pretty. I was shocked. I think when I was his age, I've probably been to about 3 states. It was pretty crazy.
Well-traveled young man. Let's get him in a geography bee if we can. I'd like
We
to
can
see
do
that.
that. We can do that.
I'd like that. Hey, Luke, you mentioned friends, and the reason you're here, or one of the biggest reasons you're here joining me today, is I was fortunate enough to chat with one of your friends. So, what I want to do is just play a quick audio clip and get your reaction here. You've been amazing
Okay.
with your time. I really appreciate it. I'm going to get you out of here on this last segment that we ask every single one of our guests. It's called Bring Them Up on Stage. All right, Casey, is there anyone that you would recommend me reach out to and have them on to Theater in College Hoops and share some stories as you were so generous to do?
Oh boy, there's a lot of good ones. I would say, Luke Gore, who's on staff at Wichita State, would be a good one. He's been around for a while.
So, Luke, I had to ask you for. I mean, I asked Casey that, and I'm going to ask this same question to you at the end of the program. But you came top of mind, man. You were the first one.
Man, Casey's amazing, man. A story about Casey is, so Casey was playing pro overseas, and they had a townhome in Valpo. And I'm just getting started. I'm married. Me and my wife get married the day after we graduate. As soon as we can live together, we chose to live together. And so we graduate, we get married, we go on a honeymoon, and we start living life. And by the time I get to Valpo, Casey and Dana had a townhome in Valpo, and they had, let's see, at the time I think they had just two of their kids, and they were one of the first families that invited us over for dinner, and it was just like, wow. So that was pretty cool. And so, but through life, it's not like we've really lived that close to each other ever. For a little while when they were in Valpo, but Casey's a great guy. I actually recruited his son to Valpo, and have done numerous things with him, and just the whole family. I got so much respect for them and his family, not just the Drew family, the Shaw family. So he has an amazing family in Ohio, and most of his roots are in Ohio. And I actually played college with one of his brother's best friends too. So it's just a small world in this basketball community. So Casey's made. I'm honored he thought of me. So I hope I don't disappoint you with this podcast, but Casey's the best.
No disappointment at all. I can already tell you're a gregarious, really energetic guy, and I'm excited to dive into this. But I'm glad he dropped your name, and that was pretty much the first thing I did was, hey, let me send an email out to Coach Gore here, and I'm glad we got you on. So with that said, Luke, I do want to dive into your coaching experience and your coaching journey. I think that's some of the most fascinating topics that I've been fortunate enough to hear. Take us through that. So I mentioned, right, you're an All-American forward at Bethel College in Mackenzie. Take us through the thought process of, hey, I think I'm going to put down the ball and maybe hop on the sidelines, and take us from that point to where you are today.
Man, I had multiple coaches in college. I had actually, from the guy who recruited me to the ones I played, basically 5 different head coaches. So it's pretty crazy. Every year I was in college, for the most part, I had a different head coach, and had some, a lot of great mentors in that stage. I was going to be a mathematician. Initially, I went to school to be an architect, and I was like, no, I'm going to do math. And so I love numbers, and so needless to say, I like analytics a lot. But when it got up in the upper level calculus, and you miss every other class for basketball, I was like, this either one's got to go, and it's not going to be basketball. So. But then when I transferred to Bethel, I was at Cumberland University for 2 years. Great, because I met my wife there. And then transferred to Bethel, and then I had great coaches at Bethel. I had Mike Nienaber, who's down at Delta State. He was at Christian Brothers a long time. Got a ton of wins and coaches of the years and stuff. But then I had Cal Luther, who over 500 wins, and Hall of Famer at Murray State. At Longwood, he just retired at UT Martin at like 72, and Nienaber had taken the job at Christian Brothers about 3 months before the season started, so it was a short window. And then Coach Luther came up and did it for an interim basis for a year, and he just had such an impact on me. It was just, I'd been thinking about coaching in college, but I hadn't really decided that yet, but his impact was so powerful on me that's what I wanted to do. And he gave me insight on what to do, how to get into it, I jumped into going to all those camps and chasing it then. And I still had 2 years left of college, and just fortunate to end up, at Valpo. It's a different route, but I think everybody in the coaching profession has a different route. I mean, unless you play pro, your route's a little bit more similar, a little bit different, and you play pro and then you get in and out of staff. But if you didn't, there's so many different ways to get to to the college level or any level. Because I hate it when people say a college coach. I mean, if you coach, there's great coaches at every level, wherever it is, and you're always giving time to help others. So I think that's amazing. But so Coach Luther said you just got to get places and get there before everybody. So very naive. I'm a Catholic boy that grew up in Tennessee from Chicago. And so I love Notre Dame. And so I sent resumes everywhere. Sent a resume for an internship at Notre Dame in fitness, in rec sports. And somehow I get it. And I think that's, I'll just get up there and the basketball coaches would notice me and I'll be on staff. And I think my naiveness was probably my biggest strength, thinking that would actually work. And so I did it. And, a story I always tell people is at 11 o'clock, the basketball coaches worked out every day. So I made sure I always cleaned the machines at 11 o'clock every day so I could talk to them and hang out. And so got to be really good friends with Anthony Solomon and Lewis Preston, and Rod Bolanis was on staff. Martin Inglesby was an intern with, at the same time. So amazing staff. And then got to know Coach Bray. And so through that, at the end of the year, I took another internship at Valpo. And the only way I was going to take not the only way, but it's because of my job in rec sports at Notre Dame that the opportunity at Valpo came up. And Ren Seibert was the director, and she needed me to be the assistant director, but it was an internship, but the title looked good. And for that job, but I was like, Ren, I want to coach. So met with Homer. He just retired. Scott had just taken over. Met with Homer. We talked about, I remember it like it was yesterday. We talked about zone and rebounding out of the zone. Because I hated playing zone because I loved to rebound, but, you don't have responsibilities. And, it was just, it always like, how do you rebound out of the zone? And there's really no rhyme or reason. You just got to go get the ball with two hands. But we got done with the meeting, and Coach had time in his hands, right? And he was like, well, let me see if Scott's available. So he opens the door. I go into Scott's office, and Homer says, hey, this is Luke Gore. He's looking to help Ren and in rec sports, and he's going to be around, and he wants to help. And Scott said, I'll take all the help I can get. Shook his hand and left, and I left his office. That was the extent of my interview with Scott. So I went to the AD's office right after that, and he said, well, how do I get you? Ren needs you. How do I get you? Well, Scott just told me he wants me too. So if I can have dual titles on both places, I don't need money. And so he gave me dual titles after Scott said one sentence to me. And that's kind of, I didn't start with rec sports until July. I ended with Notre Dame in May. So I had about a month where I didn't have a job. And I spent every waking minute in the Valpo basketball office with Scott Drew and the staff as he was getting going. And by the end of that month, I was doing scheduling and some other things for Scott. And 21 years later, I was leaving and coming to Wichita. But a lot of things happened in those 21 years. A lot of wins, a lot of conference changes, a lot of coaches changes. And, it's always been my goal to be a head coach and try to do everything to become a head coach. And I have a lot of great mentors from Valpo that I think have prepared me for the next steps. But I'm really excited about learning a new system, a new style, a new environment, a new city, an amazing place where they love basketball here at Wichita. So, but I'm so thankful for my last 21 years and all the many great people that I've been able to be associated with.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best to balance your time at Valpo while also looking ahead and getting the Shocker fans that listen to this excited for the upcoming season. But in that response, I'd like to unpack just a little bit. I had two follow-up questions. One, with Mike Bray stepping down, was there any thought crossing your mind? You're like, let me throw my name out there for the head coaching job at Notre Dame. Make a full circle, Luke.
Oh, man. You know what? I actually had a couple I had recruited one of the kids that one of the players, not kids, but one of the players at Notre Dame. And he immediately, his family reached out, and I'm like, guys, it doesn't quite work like that. I don't have quite the resume. I think I'd kill it, but I think Micah Shrewsbury is a good pick. And so, and I know Micah, and I think he's going to do an amazing job. He's hired a great staff, Kyle and Ghost and all that. Well, I don't know if he's been hired yet, but Kyle and all the guys that he's hired. I mean, he's got an amazing staff. So Micah's going to do a good job. But yeah, I would have. If I could have got the job, I'd have taken it, and we'd been running with it too.
Let me tell you,
I don't know, one of these days. So.
I wish I heard this story a couple months ago, man. I would have campaigned. I love Coach Shrewsbury as well. He did an awesome job at Penn State, but had I known your Notre Dame roots and gotten to know you a little bit, I would have thrown my hat in for you. Not that I hold any weight, but the other question I had is, I mean, really, when you take a step back and you look at that and you recant that story that you just told me, was there ever any thought in your mind that you would say, hey, okay, once I accept this Valpo gig, I'm going to be here for 21 years.
I thought it was 1 year, without a doubt. To try to keep my wife from marrying me, we were in college, and once I decided to coach, I kept telling her that you do know, like, if this coaching thing works out, we're gonna move every other year. I'm never gonna be home, and are you okay with that? And my wife's a very strong, independent woman that, I mean, she can do everything. So she kept saying, yeah, that's cool. I love it. Let's do it. And then, we moved the first year we moved to Notre Dame, and then we moved to Valpo, and we moved a couple times in town. Other than that, we didn't do a whole lot. So I was shocked. I would be honest. I did not think I'd be there that long. And then I started thinking I kept thinking of Joe Paterno's story at Penn State. He's an assistant all the way up to age 45. I'm 45 now. And then he becomes the head coach, and, then he wins 800 games or whatever. I don't know if it's not 800 because football, they don't play that much, but he won a lot of games after that. So, I started thinking that way. I was like, well, maybe this is my path. And I think all this, sorry about that, with the path of coaching, you just don't know what it is. Path of life. You just gotta be ready for it and accept it and be enthusiastic about it. And I was enthusiastic to stay and enthusiastic for the next stop. And I don't, ask me what I'm going to do in a year. I don't know, but I'm going to do the best I can for Wichita State right now, like I did for Valpo every day I was there.
Yeah, I think there's a really good life lesson in there for married men when you would basically told your wife, look, we're going to be moving a lot. And then you didn't really for 21 years. What do we call that? What is that? Under promise, over deliver, right? Yeah. That's what we're doing.
No doubt. Well, the best thing, and it's not today's age, I just can't figure it out. Now I'm from the South too. So, or I grew up in the South is, me and my wife were together. She was a freshman, end of a freshman. It was end of my sophomore year that we started dating. And I can't fathom starting life and trying to get my roots set before we got married. I was like, we're going to experience this all. And you're going to know when we make no money. And hopefully you're witness when we do make money and when we don't have kids, and when we do have kids, when we lose a job, get a job, whatever the case is, we went through it all. So she's by far my best friend and biggest supporter and all this stuff. And when we have big trauma in our life, and we hadn't had a lot, but we had a couple of things that have been pretty traumatic in our life, we get stronger all the time. So I know this ain't a marriage counseling thing, but I would say you find the one, jump in, and then don't worry about if you have enough money for the house. Work it out and go through those struggles together. It's pretty amazing.
No, those are great words. Honestly, they really are. Real quick before we dive into the Valpo wins and losses and all of those different stories that I'm really curious to hear about. You mentioned a couple times, yeah, you're from Tennessee, but Luke, you've spent majority of your life now in Northeast Indiana. You're from Chicago. You're born in Chicago. You're going to the state of Kansas. You're going to Wichita. I mean, are you Midwest or are you Southern?
Man, when I'm and people are listening, and coaches and whoever's listening, when I'm in the South, everybody asks me if I have a Northern accent. When I'm in the North, everybody asks me if I have a Southern accent. You know what? I love people and I love where I'm at. And so I'm wherever I'm at. And if my family's with me, I'm pretty excited about it. So, what I have experienced though, and I'm telling you, I don't think anybody would, there might be a couple other states out there that would disagree, but I think Indiana, Tennessee, and Kansas might have the friendliest people in the country, those 3 states. And I don't know if there's 3 states that are friendlier than those 3 spots. So, and very fortunate. Now, I was born in Chicago, so I won't get too much into Chicago, but, but in the 3 places I've lived most of my life, it's just like in the South, in Tennessee, it's overly polite, over the top, where it's like, that's fake. There's no way, And then Indiana's pretty simple. Just everybody's there, and it's kind of diverse: Northern Indiana, Southern Indiana, Eastern, Western, and then Wichita. People are just nice. I mean, Kansas, people are just nice. It's just amazing, but very similar to Valparaiso and where I grew up. So been very fortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. You've also been fortunate to be a part of some great Valpo teams. And in looking at some of those teams over the course of your career there were a couple that really stood out. And of course, I'm talking about the tournament teams. I think for me, highlighted by your tourney games against Michigan State and Maryland. Maryland, that game, you only lost by 3 to a really good Terps team. I think Mark Turgeon was on the other side, Mello Trimble, Jake Lehman. And then Michigan State, every single year, they're good. Can you take us through those 2 games, Luke, and talk a little bit about the preparation and being at that stage, any and all detail you can provide?
Yeah, no, of course, they're great memories, and it's always great motivation every day, because you know what it does take, and it takes a lot of work, but it really takes a lot of cohesion and team cohesion, talent, staff cohesion and talent, and it takes a little luck. But I'm a big Arnold Palmer had a quote saying, "The more I practice, the luckier I get." So I'm a big fan of the more I practice, the luckier I get. And if you don't put yourself out there, guess what? You'll never be lucky enough to get it done. So it's like when you're playing cards. If you play every hand, you're gonna win more hands. You're gonna lose some more hands, but you're gonna win them. But if you fold every hand, you always lose them. So I'm big on play my hand and get out there and get after it. And so in both those years, I'll go back to Gonzaga though. When we played Gonzaga in my second year, Homer just came back. So Scott just left the Baylor. Homer came back. We struggled in the non-conference, and then we got rolling. We were pretty good. And we had some older players, some really talented guys on our staff, on our team. We had some young, talented guys. And it was funny. We did back then when you found out who you were going to play, you brought the whole team in, and there's this big speaker in the middle of the floor, in the middle of the room, right? And the opposing media and your media all asking questions. And they asked one of the questions to one of our big guys, and he was international, like most of our big guys. But he was like, "Well, what do you think about Gonzaga?" And that's where as good SIDs and as coaches, you want to every question's got to come through you sometimes early on because he didn't know anything about Gonzaga. But he's like, "Well, we played Kentucky a couple years ago, and I'm really excited because they don't have the bigs that Kentucky have. Well, they had Ronnie Turioff and Corey Vallette. I mean, they were monsters inside." And so he said that, and he just didn't know. But I keep remember that was one of the first memories of going to the tournament, and the answer was like, dude, they have multiple. Adam Morrison's their 6th man. Okay, he's going to be the 3rd pick in the draft at some point. Adam Morrison's coming off the bench. They have big dudes. So, but he didn't know any better on that, and it was just because we just found out who we were going to play, and we're going to interview 5 minutes later. So don't mess me up with any questions today. So I might say something a little off like that. But all right, so we play Michigan State. We're good, but one thing we aren't is deep at the post position. We had a starting 5 that was all league, and we had a backup 5 that was good. A Big Ten transfer, and our starting 5 was Kevin Van Vyk, and our big was Bobby Capobianco, and Bobby was good. Kevin was good, but Kevin was sometimes his back would act up a little bit. Well, we're going into Michigan State, and they got Derek Nix, and Derek Nix plays for the Valpo Crew team, which is the TBT team. So it's kind of cool. Like Derek Nix is now playing with the Valpo team for the tournament. It's
big
crazy.
Boy. Let me tell you something. There was a stretch where Spartan big man. I was like, you might need to be on the gridiron.
Oh, there's no doubt. He's a monster. He still is a monster. Nice dude, really nice. But anyway, so we get in there and they throw it inside, and we doubled the post because we just of our size, and we had Corey Johnson was our post player, our center almost, and he's like a 3-man who's also on that crew team, but as a 3, not a 5. But he was our 5, so we learned to double the post, and we were pretty good at it. But they were so big, and then Kevin's back acted up before the game, and so we were down to just Bobby, and it was a tough game. And Ryan Brokop didn't have one of his best games. He played great, just didn't make a ton of shots. Eric Buggs, our point guard, played great in the game and kept it close. But the biggest story about that is I never know what the point spread is. I don't look at the point spread, but we get booed really bad at the end of the game. And Ben Boggs was a transfer from Virginia Tech, great guy. He sells insurance in Indianapolis, amazing dude. But and good basketball player, but he was like our 6th man, and he leads us in scoring. But he scores all his points in the last 2 minutes of the game, and I think we ended up losing by like 11 in the game, and everybody is booing. I'm like, you guys just won. What are we talking about? Later found out the point spread is like 11.5, and Ben dunked. It got a dunk with like a second left in the game. So Ben is like, his claim of fame is like, I got dunked on my last 2 points. I led my team in scoring the NCAA tournament, and I made a whole fan base mad at me because I beat the point spread. So, and I had no clue what was going on. And then I later found out and Ben didn't either. We were just playing him. He's in the tournament. Why not try to score every point you can? And so that was that game. And then when we played Maryland, quite frankly, we were better. I thought, Alec played pretty good, and Keith, and we just missed some shots that we normally made. We guarded them great, and then we had the ball down 3, and we want to play. Keith Carter gets it. We have a misdirection with Alec Peters to get a shot, and then Keith went another way. Keith got it, got a great pull up, and they at the timeout. No, how tall are you?
I tell my wife I'm 6 foot, but she always says, no, you're I'll say 5'12". How about that?
All right, 5'12". So they sub in, and I don't know his name. I'm sure he's a great guy and everything like that. And this is not a derogatory thing, but he's probably about 5'7". So they sub in.
Was it Varun Ram?
Is that his name? The walk-on?
Was he an Indian guy? You can be honest with me. If he was Indian.
I'm not. He's smaller. He was a walk-on.
It might have been Varun Ram, but go ahead.
So they sub him in. There's 5 seconds left. They sub in the walk-on. Like, what are they doing? And so I guess they figured the referees would never call a foul on a walk-on because he rakes – and I never talk about officials. I mean, I can't stand even talking about them. I think they're doing the best they can, and if you play well enough, you should win, and they shouldn't be that big an influence on it. Sometimes they are, but anyway, Keith gets a great look, and whoever the guy was – rakes his arm down. There's a photo where his hands down like this, raking it, and it comes, and Keith still almost hits it. Now Keith was only about a 60% free throw shooter, so who knows if he hit all the free throws, but he was super clutch, and so I really believe Keith would have hit those, and we'd be talking about an overtime win right now. But that's part of the luck, So those are the 3 tournament games, but I mean, so many other great games in my time at Valpo, and but yeah, those are those.
Let me pull something up for you and see if you can confirm this. Is that the
yeah, there's the picture right there. Look, is that not a foul?
That's a lot of arm.
Yeah, I mean, somehow Keith still got his hand back on the ball to shoot it. And I don't know how big this guy is, but I'm telling you.
He listed 5'9".
Yeah, it's 5'9". Like, why would you sub in a 5'9" guy? And, we got Alec there. He missed direction. He came back. And Keith had a great look, so he took it. Yeah, so that's it. I'm
sorry to bring up bad memories.
Than that photo right there. So.
No, absolutely. What great detail, though. I mean, obviously some amazing runs there. And I'm always fascinated by the in-depth behind the scenes stories of a team that has heard their name on Selection Sunday, that prepares for some of these giants. And of course, I mean, being a part of Valpo, it's really a cult hero type of team. every single year we see the Bryce Drew shot,
Mhm.
right? So it's just really neat to get that perspective.
Yeah, no, it's and that, I think that actually it goes against Valpo a little bit when it comes to Selection Sunday, because a lot of teams, they immediately, like, as they're watching Selection Sunday, they see this shot by Valpo, and then when they get Valpo, they're always in the tournament, they're good, and all this. So you're not sneaking up on them like a team that's never been there, or a team that's been there but they haven't had this iconic shot. And I tell you what, somebody to have an iconic shot with his dad and brother on the sideline, it couldn't happen to a better family than the Drew family. So, I mean, it's really very it's very iconic on everything that's involved in that shot, from Bryce hitting it to Homer being the Hall of Fame coach on the sideline, to Scott sitting over there, to on his staff was Jared Nunes and was on the team, and some great individuals were also on the team, and they're just and how they've branched out and done some great things in basketball and life. I mean, there's twins, brothers, the Jenkins brothers, and they're very successful, living in Texas now. And then Zoran Vistovich is very successful and lives in Wisconsin. And I mean, they're all over the place, and they're just doing great. And it's pretty cool.
Every single tournament, I'm watching CBS, TBS, all the family and networks. And before the games and between the games, they have the montage of the great shots with Jim Nantz on the call or whomever. And I promise you, till the day I die, it's going to be the Bryce Drew shot that's going to be there every single year. It's going to be like Chris Jenkins, Villanova, and Leitner over Kentucky. Those three are going to be there no matter what, I feel like.
No doubt. Me too.
So, Luke, I now want to pivot a little bit to this offseason and accepting this new job with Wichita State. Okay. Paul Mills, new coach, new regime here for the Shockers. Take us through the process of this transition, your first outreach or touch base with Coach Mills, how this opportunity came to be. Basically, take us to the end of the season to where you are right now.
So one of the first people Coach Scott Drew hired at Baylor was Paul Mills, and so one of the first people that, I don't know if Scott Drew ever hired me at Valpo, but I was on his staff. I don't know, if you call that a hire.
You got that 1 minute conversation, that counts.
And I just ran with it. So me and Coach Mills have known each other for a lot of the duration. We've ended up recruiting. I recruit Oklahoma a lot, so we've had connections there, and just just over the years. So I've known him, and during the offseason, he called me, reached out to see how I was doing, and he's just a great guy, and told him. And then Chris Hollander, who was hired, and in my network, people in my network are, like, I brought up Jared Nunes, and a lot of the Baylor guys. Luke Simons is down there, Scott Drew, John Jenkins, I mean, the whole group of guys. And so, and Coach Mills is part of it, right? So, when during the offseason, I'm reaching out to everybody to find out what's going on and just see what's out there. And so, that being said, I found out Chris Hollander is a really good friend of mine, just got hired as an assistant at Wichita State. And we're talking, and he's like, well, I think the ops spot, or would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, I would be interested. I want to get to the highest level. And Wichita State basketball is as high as it comes. I mean, it's if you've been to Wichita, you've talked Shocker basketball, you've seen the crowds. I think they had I think I heard Coach Mills said this today, and I could be way off in this number, so don't quote me, but I think before COVID, 243 straight games of over 10,000 fans. So that's about as high major as you get. And so, that was my mind. What is my path to be the best coach I can be? And being a part of Wichita State basketball was like, yes. And then knowing how great Coach Mills has been as a head coach at ORU, and, he has his magical moments too. And some great, Sweet 16 run in his fourth year as a head coach. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And then go back 2 years later and anybody, I don't know how many teams went undefeated in their league last year, but that is impossible.
They were a wagon, man.
Oh, they were good. And you know what, I thought, a big fan of their game. I thought they were going to beat Duke in the first round, and it was close, and they're getting after it. And sometimes, Duke had bigs that could match their bigs, and it was just, the matchups and who makes shots. So, but anyway, I found out that the op spot was open from Chris, so I called Coach again, and he's like, "Let me call you back." And the funny thing is, and Coach won't even, I don't know if you remember, but I left the greatest voice message in the history of voice messages. Like, I thought out, and like he didn't answer, so what I had scripted to say, I think I killed it. Like, I was just like bam, bam, bam. And so Coach calls me, and is like, "Did you leave a voicemail?" Because it was muffled. I couldn't really hear any of it. But if it was about this, and I'm like, "Yeah, I left a voicemail, Coach." And so, and that was on. Let's see, we talked on Easter Sunday. I remember it. I was at my in-laws, and my kids were ready to do an Easter egg hunt, and Coach Mills called. And now, knowing Coach, if I'd have said that, he would have said, "Call me back." Like, but I didn't say it. And my kids are 8 and 11, so they've done a few Easter egg hunts before. So. And so I take the call, and it was really good. And he was like, "Let me call you in the morning." And he calls me in the morning and talk about the job. And he's like, basically, "What do you want it?" I'm like, kind of at least check out campus. And so Wednesday I was on campus and accepted the job on Wednesday. So after Thanksgiving, so it was an amazing week. It was a roller coaster time, but very thankful. And it's just so that's the really short version. There's a lot of other things that go along with it in the off season, and I think some of those details are better just for me. So
yeah, absolutely, that's an incredible story. You found your own Easter egg.
Yes, that's great. I didn't even think about that. After I got back, I think they're still finding some because I usually hide them, and then I usually have to find them because the first year, I got a 2 and a 5-year-old. I remember that because my daughter was just started to walk, and I could hide the egg. So I was like, for my son, you got one kid, and maybe a neighbor will come over, you just throw them out there. Now you got 2, so you want to make it a little challenging. I think they found about 50% of the eggs. And so then mowing the lawn, I'm running over an egg, or here's another egg. So after that year, I was like, I'm putting this egg right in the middle of the yard. I was not hiding anything. Well, my niece, she's 14 or 15, she hid the eggs, and she did a heck of a job hiding that. I think we only had to find 10 more after my kids went through. My kids are old, and they're good at looking, but she was putting them in places. So
there you go.
Yeah,
there
she was
you
like,
go.
put it in a bag, zip up the bag, put it in the back of the car. Like, I can't believe you didn't find it. Like, okay.
I love it. So, that's a great story. It sounds like it all happened so quickly, and that's usually how these coaching changes happen, right?
Yeah.
Have you been, and again, I feel kind of guilty asking you these questions, but have you been able to get to know some of the players? Have you been able to interact with any of the other members of the staff? Tell us a little bit about these introductions, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's so players. I was able to get here for the last workout of the season. Coach Mills is very understanding, and through the transition, just been great. And so I was able to get to the last workout. I got to meet some of the guys then that were still on campus. But in today's society, climate of college basketball, you have so much turnover each year. So, but really good dudes. I show up and like Kenny Poto's working out every morning at 6:30 in the morning, and Isaac is working out in the morning, and the guys are in the gym. The ones at Kobe's in the gym. They're just the guys are in the gym working. Xavier Bell's in the gym. They're getting after it, right? And so I get to briefly get to know them. We have a couple. We have some visits, and so that visits, you get to know the staff pretty well on that. But I've got to know the staff pretty good. They've in and out, and I've been in and out, and I'm here situated now by myself. Family will be here in a couple weeks, but staff is really impressed with the staff. Guys that played at a high level, guys that are just passionate. They're smart. They love analytics. They have different backgrounds. And once again, like the biggest thing I can say is I showed up at the moving truck from Indiana with a 26-foot U-Haul with a trailer strapped on the back of it with a truck full with stuff, with a Jeep full with stuff and I asked 2 of the managers, they brought 5 buddies, and the entire coaching staff came over and helped me move in an hour. So it was like, I mean, I can go into accolades of all these guys, like KP, he's going to be a head coach soon. The dude's good. Like, he is good. And he's energetic and passionate. Chris Hollander is one of my closest friends. And he just has so much passion for life. And he played at Evansville, but all the guys played at a high level, and most of the guys played at a high level. But not that you need to do that to be a great coach. Like, they have passion. And then Quincy Acey is just a great, like, I mean, he looks like he should. I mean, I wish we could suit him up. I mean, the guy looks amazing. Not that the other guys don't look, but he's like, let's suit that guy up and let him dunk on somebody. But then he has such a big heart. I mean, it just, you can tell why he had so much success at Baylor and then playing in the pros for so long, and then his coaching stop in the G League and everything. So, and then those guys are great, but and everybody knows those guys, but those guys don't just make the staff. It's like Ian Lehman is our director of player personnel. Amazing. This guy's traveled all over Europe. He loves Europe. Like, it's just his story. Xavier Holland is our special assistant to the head coach. I mean, he's had 3 jobs in the last year. He's at Texas Tech, Lipscomb, and now Wichita State. Before that, he was ORU. And I mean, just passion, great, nice guy. Our chief of staff is Ryan Hillard, who's been here he was a student manager, then at GA, and then he was with Coach Marshall, and now he's been around the program helping, and now he's the chief of staff, which basically means he just helps everybody. He just knows everything, and he's from Wichita, so he's been huge. Our strength coach Ashton Morales is from Kansas, but he was at ORU. Is top notch, and so it's just all the guys, and then we have some great GAs coming in, so it's just a lot of quality individuals that all of us want to be good, and we want to be good together, and sometimes there's I'm older than some of them, and I'm usually and I've used to be in that role a little bit, but I'm always the guy that knows the spot, like, so they come to me because I've been there a while. Now I'm the guy going to them, and they just been so helpful and welcoming, and my goal is every day to make everybody around me better, the players, the staff, and get after it, and it's just been great. So, but I can tell you about a ton of great people I work with at Valpo too. So I've just been fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks to you as well, though, being able to name every single person like that. And I think Shocker fans are really excited for fresh juice, right? After, a couple wayward past couple years, I think they're really excited for this new coaching staff that you're a part of. So I want to transition a little bit to the landscape of basketball in Kansas. You had mentioned Kansas has some of the most friendly people you'll ever meet. I would hazard to guess that is not necessarily true as it relates to Jayhawks fans versus Wildcat fans versus Shockers fans. I don't think you 3 like each other very much. So in thinking about the standard that Wichita State has set in the past, and I'm specifically referencing the Greg Marshall years, the final 4 years. I think they went to a Final Four, right? Maybe they did, right?
13. Yep.
I'll be honest with you. I always mix them up with VCU, who I know also went to a Final Four, so that's on me. But that Wichita State standard, right? You got Kansas, who's a year removed from a national title, and they're going to be great again. Kansas State, what a wonderful job Jerome Tang did in his first season. Has the thought come into mind, like, how do we keep pace with these guys in state? Or are you just more worried about yourself?
We're not in the same league as those guys. Those 2 are in the same league, so that happens. And I know, Tang and Mills are really close. They worked together for 20 years, so they're boys. But now we're going to play Kansas State, so I know Mills is pretty fired up for that, and I'm going to do everything I can for Shocker basketball, and not only that game, but all the games. But you got to circle that one and get after it. But no, it's amazing, the fan base. I mean, Wichita is the largest city in Kansas, and we don't have a professional team. And everybody I meet, they already know that I'm part of Shocker basketball. I don't have to tell them. Like, it's amazing. And the best thing in Wichita is like, well, I like this. Sometimes they're like, I like Kansas State football, I like Kansas this, but I love Shocker basketball. Like, I haven't found anybody that hadn't said they love Shocker basketball in Wichita. And there's 600,000 people in Wichita. So if we can get it rocking, which we will, and they're going to be there to support. And it's amazing the stats and the crowds. I mean, just Google geez, it's authentic. It's not auditioned. It's not like a Broadway musical where they tell the crowd to do this or that. They are waiting outside the door to get in the door to just support their local team, and they travel. I mean, the stories I used to get when we were in the Valley is they would have like 8,000 fans show up at St. Louis for Arch Madness. I don't know if I've been at one game in Arch Madness that had 8,000 fans. So, and they used to bring 8,000 from Wichita. And so, that's pretty cool.
It's the best, in my estimation. It is the best mid-major tournament, bar none.
Arch Madness is great. It's really good.
Always delivers. I swear, it always delivers.
It was really good. I was fortunate to be part of it, and I agree with you.
Yeah. So in thinking of this upcoming season, and again, keep me honest here, Luke, a proper answer could just be it's too early to tell, but do you guys have a mantra or what this version of Wichita State basketball wants to be? Is there a certain mentality or goals that you're looking to achieve here under year one of Paul Mills?
It is early to tell, but from what I've gathered, and you look at Coach Mills' track record, tempo, top 30 in the country, making threes, top 10 in the country, turning the ball over. They turn over the ball least than anyone else in the country while playing faster than everyone else, while shooting and making more threes than everyone else. And then the emphasis on the one practice, you can tell how much just playing hard and together and intelligent at the same time. And it's instincts. We're going to teach instincts. We're going to teach you how to play, and we're going to teach our guys how to play. And then they're going to play fast, and they're going to shoot the ball. And I'm not saying they're just coming up shooting threes, but they're going to find the weakness of how we're going to find the weakness of how you defend. We're going to attack it. We're going to shoot good shots. And we have guys that can make shots. And so just a little bit of my time with Coach, the biggest thing we're doing is trying to build the schedule, build the team, build the chemistry, get the guys here for summer and all those things. But in the little time that I've spent with Coach Mills and staff, there's no doubt we're going to play fast. We're going to shoot the ball. We're going to make great reads. We're going to let the guys play, and then we're going to play really, really hard. And I know, like you see, I think a couple years ago they had this mantra where every new coach said, "Hey, we're going to play fast," and they just kept tempo or whatever the word was. And then the next year, I think it was every head coach that took the head coaching job said culture, and every interview and someone put it all together. But I haven't heard Coach Mills say we're going to play fast. I just know he shows the stats of how they play, and they play a fast tempo. They don't turn the ball over. They score a lot of points. They make a lot of threes at a very high percentage, and they're very efficient on offense. And then defensively, they've been the best defensive team in the Summit League for quite a few years. So if we can do those things, Shocker fans are going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to have a lot of success, and that's our goal.
No,
And
Luke,
passion.
I'm truly, truly appreciative of that response, because I feel like I have gotten some boilerplate responses in the past, and that's no disrespect to the guests that I've had on, but you're the first person to specifically hone in on the type of play and tempo, breakneck pace. And look, I love all brands of basketball, but it's hard to, if you ask me, what do you like better? Yeah, I want to see the up and down. I want to see players shooting, and of course the toughness, defense. That's going to elevate you even more. But pace basketball is what I tune in for.
Yeah, well, I once again, I just know how Coach is presented what he's been good at ORU when he was interviewing me, and what I've seen him do with recruits, and what I've seen the proof of it. It's not like it's just words. I mean, that's what they did. And if you look at the efficiency stuff and all that, it was just very, very successful at that. Now you got to have the players to do it. And we got to make sure our guys are capable of playing that way to be able to play that way. But that's the goal. So.
Absolutely. Luke, let's have a little fun here. Some quick hitters. All right. We had mentioned some of these names. Is there an opportunity for a Scott Drew convention in Kansas between you? You got Paul Mills, Jerome Tang, Quincy Acey's there. Man, you guys are all their branches of the Scott Drew tree. Any chance we can all meet up and break bread?
Oh man, we can do that. I don't know about playing games, but we can all meet up and break bread and we have some great conversations. Don't forget Grant. Grant's over at Texas Tech. Matt Driscoll's down in North Florida. I mean, the Scott Drew tree is all over the place now, and being successful too. I mean, geez, successful. So it's because those guys work with passion and love, and they just get after it. I mean, if you ever been around, just hang around, come down here and hang around with Coach Mills for a little bit. You just see a smart, passionate guy that is getting after it. I mean, he gets after it every day, but in a way that you want to be around him. I mean, it's like you ask him a question, he'll answer it. You're not going to think he's ever too busy, but he's also called 50 recruits that day or called one recruit 50 times, whatever it takes to get the recruit, And then if you've ever been around Tang, he's the same way. Mills I think he did a lot of the offense at Baylor and Tang did a lot of the defense, and Scott does everything, obviously. And all those guys are just a really good group. You'd have some fun. And it'd be a lot of laughter, a lot of fun, and everybody'd be it'd be a bit boisterous, talkative group too.
A lot of wins in that group for sure.
A lot of dubs.
Yep. Toughest environment you've had to coach in over the course of your career?
Ooh. The toughest environment that I've had to coach in is when the other team has a lot more talent. Don't matter where it's at. It could be 1 fan or 10 fans or 10,000 fans. But
is there a particular game that sticks out to you?
One game that sticks out is the first game I was ever part of at Valpo was we went to Syracuse. And, the season started on that Friday, whatever it is. But they give waivers, so a couple teams played in these preseason tournaments. And so there's like 6 teams played games and Syracuse happened to be one of those teams. And so they played 2 games before we played them. We were their first game. It was Scott Drew's first year as a head coach. And I just remember breaking down the film with Scott. And at that day, it wasn't that long ago. Okay. So it wasn't that long ago, but everything is on VHS, right? We're in the office. You can't go home and break down film. You had to be in the office to break down film. So at least we did at Valpo. No, I didn't. And so Scott, his first game, he's doing the scout. He's doing the own scout for his first game as head coach. He's doing the scout, and I'm there to help him. And he says, "No, keep in mind, I just want to do a good job. I just want to not get fired. I don't want to get kicked out. Do whatever He says, I want everything I call this guy, number 15, Anthony. Get me from his 2 games, get me everything.
God.
Every time they talk about him, I put it on the film. Every time they show him on the bench, I put him on the film. Every time he's on the court, I put it on the film. I was like, here you go, coach. He's like, how long is it? I don't know, an hour? He's like, an hour? How's it an hour? I was like, you said everything. He's like, I meant like every make or shot and then every missed free throw. So I think maybe we have to foul him at the end. Because at the time, maybe he's not a good free throw shooter. He's proven that he can shoot free throws pretty good. But anyway, we played the game. And so, and we're leading a lot of the game. And we play zone too. They're playing zone. We're playing zone. We're getting to the high post. We had a guy, Rydas Gross, who's hitting some, shots in the middle. He's a great player for us. And I think we had the lead with 5 minutes to go. And at Syracuse. And then Carmelo Anthony thought that we wouldn't have the lead anymore. And I think he scored 15 points in the last 5 minutes. We ended up losing by, 9, 10, 12 points. Now, that wasn't the toughest environment, amazing environment. I've been fortunate to be some great places. We got to coach at Cameron and in the Dean Dome Bradley has an amazing atmosphere in the Valley. Murray State is amazing atmosphere. New Mexico State is awesome. Kansas, got to be there, and Rock Hawk Jayhawk is loud. Purdue is up there. Purdue is about as tough as it is, but that's a cop-out question because everybody says Purdue, everybody says Cameron. So I'm gonna give you somebody else. The toughest place that I've ever coached, no doubt, and I don't want to give them any credit, but I will because of who my current boss is ORU. So if you look at the history of Valpo, we're in the same league with them for a while, and we beat them every time at our place, and they beat us every time at their place. So that toughest place to play. I mean, you go to the gym, they got the praying hands right outside the arena, and then they say a prayer to make sure ORU wins before the game, and then we never got a dub there. So I'm gonna say ORU, and maybe that's a cop-out because Coach Mills came from there to count them. But I think it's easy to say Kansas, Duke, Syracuse, New Mexico State, Purdue. But I'm going to go with ORU, toughest place to play.
I like that, Luke. Everyone does say Kansas, by the way. I think if I got a running tally, everyone's like five or six people say Kansas, which I don't think is just blowing smoke up my tail. I like you hear stories about, it's crazy. I like that you went ORU.
About 17 minutes. They do a 17, like they don't only do Kansas basketball, but basketball in general, because obviously they invented basketball. And it goes on for, the intro is like 17. Like you might as well go back in the locker room and have a snack and tape up and do all that during their intro. It's so long.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm glad you said ORU though, and how timely of a story with Carmelo Anthony retiring here. That's pretty amazing. So you had mentioned, Luke, that you were in charge essentially of recruiting in Oklahoma. Is that correct? That's where you did most of your work?
No. I just recruited Oklahoma. So
okay.
That's it. We brought a kid in from Keandre Young, and I got to know some people good, some people really well out in Oklahoma. And then Mills was at ORU, so he would call me and ask me some stuff, and that's all.
I guess I was just most curious who's the most electric or jaw-dropping recruit that you went to see, whether or not you got him to Valpo. Is there any names that you went to see like in high school that you can just say, damn, this kid is going to be a player?
Well, it was easy, but like Derrick Rose and Eric Gordon were playing at the same time, and you'd see those two guys playing in AAU. They played together for a little while, then they played against each other, and you're like, all right, that's a 1 and 2 pick. And then I ended up getting a recruit and coach, Eric's brother, Aaron Gordon, at Valpo, and so that was really cool. But like Derrick would only score like 10, 15 points in a game, but he dominated AAU too. He'd dominate everything. So he's so easy to figure out how good he was. Like he's so good that I knew no need for me to recruit him. Let's see. You know what? So we had Brandon McPherson on our team, and I like giving you the names that I know, not the names that everybody else knows. But Brandon was a great player for us in Valpo, great human. Very fortunate to be able to stay in touch with Brandon. And so his high school team, they won 3 state championships. He won 2 of them, and then the other 2 guys on his team won the 3rd straight one. And those 2 guys were Oden and Conley. And so I just remember watching that high school team, and at the front of the press was Greg Oden. And
how do you get the ball over?
You couldn't get the ball in bounds. Like he's pressing these high school dudes, right? And it's the highest level of high school basketball. Maybe not the highest talent, but the MEAC of Indianapolis is about as good as it gets in high school basketball. And Greg's over the ball. And then you got Brandon and Michael Conley as the next 2 guys. So you have an Olympic sprinter, a mid-major stud, and a number 1 pick in the draft. And that's just 3 of the Division I. Everybody else is Division I too. And you just couldn't. And they have a Hall of Fame coach in Coach Kiefer. So that team was probably talent-wise at a high school level, just like – and Oden was like – I remember they were beating the team and they pressed and they didn't let off the press. Oden stole the ball up 10, 15, 20, 25 points, whatever. Stole it, dunked it, hand it back to guy, and he almost felt bad, and he's almost like, all right, go ahead, throw it in this time. But then as soon as he threw it, he trapped the next one, and they stole that one, and I think he got another dunk. And I'm like, this dude is the nuts. So.
That's unbelievable. That's kind soul there from Greg Oden, only just to trap again. Hey, Luke, I only got just a few more for you, but I mean, I love asking this question to coaches.
Go ahead.
You foul up 3 or no?
Yeah. Foul up 3. All right. So how much time's left?
7 seconds. Ball is at it being inbounded at, let's say, half court.
How big's the other team? I mean, is it Michigan State? Are we playing Michigan State? Or
We'll say Michigan State, sure.
All right, are we playing Michigan State? It's going to be harder to foul it because I don't know if we can get the rebound on the second free throw. So it's going to be now if we can foul it with less than a second, which is very dangerous because they still might get the shot off, or less than 3 seconds. So it depends on, to me, you got to know if how great of a rebounding team you are, how great of a rebound team and they are, and the numbers say foul. I mean, the analytics say foul, but I also know if you put in something. I also like throwing in a perimeter zone where you're not just switching everything, but you're not guarding the basket at all, and it's so different because the coach just drew up a man-to-man play, and now you got a perimeter zone, and what are you going to do? And the basket's wide open. A lot of times a player will go down there and get inside underneath the basket. No one follows. Now he's got to throw it out, and they're going to throw it to your team. So I think you practice both of those tactics, or just your straight man and switch. And but I think you got to be prepared, and you have to do a lot of special situations leading up to the season and see what works are. And then your guys, no matter what it is, they know. Like we don't have to ask this question in the huddle. And I think that's what, Mike Bray at Notre Dame's amazing at it. Like if you go ever watch one of his practices, the whole practice is special situations. Like that's all they do. And so the players know what to do in all these situations because they've went against it in practice. Yeah. And I think that's the key.
Man, I can't wait to see that situation. Look, I hope you guys blow teams out by 15, but I think you even know that's unrealistic. So
if every game we're up 3, I'm going to take it. Like, I just, if every game we're always up 3, then I'm going to take that right now, and hopefully we do the right thing and we can get a lot of W's.
Win's a win. Hey, what's a piece of advice you'd give to young coaches? I've been fortunate enough to chat with a lot of great up-and-coming young coaches who I truly think are going to be major contributors to high D1 level programs and even head coaches someday. What's your biggest piece of advice to them?
There's not a perfect way to get to what your goal is. And if someone tells you that they know the way to do it, or that you can't do it, or your path is not going to line up, or go do this instead, or go do that. If you got to have a personality. Like no matter how hard you work, if you don't have some bit of a personality, it's hard to progress in the field. Because there's a lot of great people in the field, but I would say you don't coach for money. You're not in it for the money. Now, whatever level you choose is determining what you want your end check to be. But if that's still the reason you're doing it, you're not passionate enough about it, because there's so many people in so few positions. And so if your first question to a coach is, well, how much is my stipend, or how much I'm going to get paid? You're not going to make it. But if your first question is, when do we start? When can I show up? Can I sleep on your floor? Can I sleep in the hallway? Can I sleep in the locker room? And that's where you want to get into the business. And then you can do it with such a positive. And then, but then don't show up and sleep in the office and tell everybody you're sleeping in the office. Like, tell them after the fact, because that motivates other guys. Oh, we can do it. But at the time, just be overly positive that you have an opportunity to do it, and show that passion. If that's your passion, you know it. And if you don't feel it after, don't do it, because this profession is amazing. I love it. I just love it. But you got to have a passion that drives you. You got to have support. If your wife isn't supportive of it, then you don't need to do it. Your marriage is more important than your job. And so you gotta make sure your wife has the same understanding. She's not gonna have the same passion, but she has to have an understanding of it. If you're not married and you're gonna get married, make sure you have those conversations. But I would say this is believe in yourself, be yourself, do it passionately, do it positively, and don't be hunting a paycheck. Because look at the Miami Heat. Look at Spoelstra, his pathway. Missoula's. He was a good player at West Virginia, but 11 years ago he was a D2 assistant at Glenville State. He wasn't there saying pay me more. I guarantee you he wasn't saying that every day. I don't know him, but I know some guys that know him pretty well, and so that would be my advice. And even if you're a former NBA player and you're coming back, the money's not the problem. You shouldn't worry. You got the money, so just go coach for free and let some guys that didn't get paid get paid. So, but that would be my advice: is be passionate. Don't chase the money. If the money comes, great. But this is I can't think of a more rewarding profession, and not just because you get to influence players and win games, but you get to be around managers, you get to be around other college students, you get to have an impact, and they have just as much impact on you, and it keeps you young. I feel like I'm young, and then you get to be in a competitive environment all the time, and you get to learn life that way. So. So that would be my advice. I think that's advice, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. I was just going to say that's some remarkably poignant words. And it actually reminded me of an interview I did around this time last year. I was fortunate enough to chat with Jared Grosso, who's the head coach at Bryant University. And he actually had a pretty similar story in the sense that Tim Cluess had basically called him late at night. And I think he was like, hey, do you want this job? And Grosso was sleeping in the gym. He was putting in all those crazy hours, and he was talking to your point about passion. So when you mentioned that was the first person that came to mind. Yeah. So Luke, you have been so generous with your time. You've been truly amazing with these stories. And like I said, I promised you this. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Casey Shaw. It's the segment called Bring Them Up on Stage. Luke, is there anyone that you can recommend that I reach out to come on and share some stories as you have been so kind to do?
Well, and very similar to Casey, there's so many individuals, and we could keep guys that are connected to the Valpo tree and go in a lot of ways. But so I tried to think of a way to get outside the Valpo tree a little bit, and and so there's a couple guys that I really thought of, but Kyle Getter up at Notre Dame. Amazing individual. He just got there as associate head coach. He was at Virginia a long time. He's from Indiana. Kyle's an amazing guy. And then if I can give you a second one, is the staff at Princeton is awesome. Coach Henderson is amazing. But
I'm an Arizona fan though, man. I don't know. It's still a little too early.
Oh man, you're not an Arizona fan. You're a Princeton fan now. So, but I would say Mitch McConnell, the associate head coach there, is another one that I would reach out to. So those, I gave you two, and I thought of some more, but I'm going to give you those two because they're not part of the Valpo tree and the Wichita State tree, the Baylor tree, whatever, ORU tree, whatever tree I'm in, and all those. But I thought I'd try to get outside that because there's so many amazing people in that tree. So those are the guys I'm going to give you.
I love it, Luke. Thank you so much. I'll be sure to reach out to them and I'll say, hey, Mitch, least you could do is mend this broken heart from that upset and grant me this interview. But I will be sure to reach out to them. Luke Gore, thank you so much for jumping on and sharing your story. It was amazing. We will be tracking Wichita State. Really excited for this year one under Paul Mills, and best of luck moving forward. All right.
Well, thank you. If I can ever help you, let me know.